Hi, my name is Chris Ryan and welcome to this third video in the 4-part series, How to Rip Your Irons. Today we're looking at the downswing. We're going to be addressing pressure shift and a little bit of how you use your body within the downswing, which is definitely going to help you achieve a good impact and hit better iron shots out on the golf course. So welcome back to the Forest of Arden and welcome back to the 15th hole, this par 3 on the back 9 of the Arden course. So this is a video series on how you can hit your iron shots better. We have already done 2 videos. We've looked at the setup, we've looked at what actually needs to happen at impact, and we've covered a couple of elements in the backswing. If you haven't seen those first 2 videos, I will link them down below. It would make sense for you to watch them in the correct order. So what we're doing in this video, well, we're going to look at the downswing, and we're going to be looking at the downswing specifically kind of towards impact, because the next video is going to be looking a little bit more specifically at impact. So as you can imagine, if I'm looking at trying to give some information across as to how to hit the irons better, there are multiple different things that I can include. So what I've really tried to do in this video is look at the things that I tend to see the really good elite golfers doing, and maybe something that the high handicap amateurs don't tend to do. So obviously this isn't going to cover absolutely everything, but hopefully these 2 things are going to be quite important. And if you can work towards these, I definitely think it's going to give you some improvements down at the impact area. So in video 2, we looked at pressure shift. So we're going to cover that again and in the downswing. So what would we tend to see as a trend across the best golfers? Well, as they move into their backswing, they would tend to shift about 80% of pressure under their trail side. On the downswing, they would tend to shift about 80% of pressure under their lead side. Now, in the downswing, that 80% of pressure on their lead side would tend to happen by the time the lead arm is about parallel to the ground. If we look at what we tend to see from the golfers who really struggle with the irons, especially those ones who find it difficult to get that sort of downward hit and the compression, when their lead arm reaches horizontal in the downswing, they've very often not got enough pressure on that lead side. Some cases they've actually still got pressure on that trail side. That's going to make it very difficult to hit the low point target side of the ball, which we mentioned in video 1. So here's a little exercise I want you to do in practice, and this is kind of more of a concept and something that you can think about. And this is really a good one to really get the difference in pressure and weight. We're going to use some easy numbers. Let's say I weighed 10 stone. I appreciate that everyone's going to be using different metrics, but let's say 10 stone. So if I was to stand on 2 scales, this one would show 5 and this one would show 5. Now if I move my weight onto my lead side, this one would now show 10 and this one would show 0. So this scale would take my weight. This would go up to 10. In the golf swing, as we start down, we do not want this scale to get to 10 stone. We want you to try and imagine that this scale is going to get higher than 10 stone, because that's the difference in pressure and weight. A weight shift would simply be me taking my weight and moving onto this lead side. A pressure shift would be a golfer who's trying to apply some force through the ground. I'm trying to make that scale create a higher reading than what I weigh. So you may well have heard videos in the past talking about golfers getting heavier as they start down and then getting lighter as they approach impact. This is exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to create some pressure under that lead side. So a great little exercise is just to do exactly that. You're going to take your setup, you're going to make your backswing, and you're going to buy your lead arm parallel. You're going to feel that you can create that pressure under that lead side. Now what you'll notice is happening, hopefully, is that my hips are having to make a small lateral movement towards the target. You can see my lead hip beginning to move towards the target in this direction. That's not the only thing that's happening. There's a couple of other factors as well, but this is a really important element to your golf swing. Once you feel like you get to that 80% on that lead side, you can start posting that lead leg, and we can start to work through the impact, and you can see that I've now lost the flex in my leg. If you could measure me at impact, I'm going to weigh significantly lighter than I did halfway into that downswing, because we are trying to go pressure under our trail side, pressure under our lead side, and then we start to push away from the ground, which gets us a little bit lighter. So the first little exercise I want you to do is that, and you can do that without a golf club, you can do that without a practice facility. You can just go back and just imagine that you're creating that pressure under that lead side. That's going to help you ultimately get your low point target side of the golf ball. So we're now going to look at the golf swing from a different angle down the line, and a couple of things that I want you to focus on in practice. And again, these things are really designed to help us get the right contact, which we said, you know, the start of the video series was this downward angle of attack with the handle forwards, with a loft reduced, all those kind of things that are going to give you those feels that you want at impact. So as you're starting to shift your pressure towards the target, which we just spoke about, what we would also tend to see from the elite golfers is they would tend to have a slight lowering of the pelvis. You can think of that as your belt line. So a slight lowering of the belt line, and the angles in my body will slightly increase. So angles, we're talking about this here. As I start down, those angles will slightly increase. That movement, that lowering of the hips, that slightly increasing of the flex in my body is going to allow me to get my hands at last parallel, slightly lower than this alignment stick that I've got on the ground. This is the Alignment Pro. My hands are slightly lower than that Alignment Pro. Let's look at what we tend to see from the golfers who don't particularly hit their irons too well. The angles in their body, they will very often start to lose those as they start down. So their push away from the ground happens far too early. They're pushing away from the ground, they're extending their body, they lose the angles. I can't now get my hands low enough at this point here, and I'm now going to feel like I stall my rotation to allow me to try and reach that golf ball that's down on the ground. If I'm this golfer who extends too early, if I continue to rotate as we want through the golf ball, that rotation will raise the handle and I simply won't be able to reach the golf ball. So if you start your downswing with a slight extending of the body, you aren't able to get your hands low enough over this trail thigh, you simply cannot pivot correctly through the ball from there, because if you did, you'd miss the golf ball or you would top the golf ball. So here's what I want you to do in practice. From the top, you're going to feel that you rotate back towards the target, you shift pressure, you lower your pelvis. Here. That's going to allow me to get the handle lower. It's going to allow me to keep the flex in the body. From here, we can start to really focus hard on pivoting through and rotating, but that's going to be much easier having done those things which precede this. So what you can see in this video here is we've spoken a little bit more about the body and maybe a little bit less about the golf club, because if we're looking to strike the ball and then the ground and get a low point target side, that's really down to how the body's moving through the golf swing and how the body's rotating, extending, flexing, all of those kind of things. We haven't spoken much about the golf club, but we will do very much more in video 4. Just to recap this lesson, the things we want to try and do is a pressure shift early. And as we do that, we want to feel that we're slightly increasing the flex in our body by lowering our pelvis and allowing our hands to reach a lower position at this last parallel. If you can do those things, you're well on your way to striking those irons much, much better. Let's hit another shot into 15. If you remember in video 2, I thought it was going to go in. It didn't. Let's see if we can get any closer in this one. It's on a pretty good line again. A little right of the flag this time. But it's around about 15 feet away, maybe just outside that, so give myself a good chance at birdie. Video 3, talking about the downswing. Hopefully some information there is going to help you practice. Make sure you check back for video 4, because we're going to be looking at the impact and giving you some drills that you can do to tidy up your impact and hit those really, really crisp iron shots that we all want to hit. Thank you for watching. Usual stuff, as always, is down below. There's a comments box down there. There's a like button. There is also a logo over here. That's my logo. Click on that. It allows you to be a free subscriber of the channel. It means you won't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you very much for watching. We shall see you back here again soon.